everyone, and welcome to the One Soccer Nation podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Rae. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a special guest, Danilo Caixeiro. Daniel, thank you for being here. To kick things off, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Of course. Kareem, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been in football for the last 6 years now, and always working more on the finance and strategy side. I got into football when I started my company, Matix Capital. We're a investor advisory company for people who wanted to buy soccer clubs. And for the last 4 years, actually, I've been working in one multi-club ownership group, specifically Eagle Football Group, which owns Botafogo in Brazil, Olympique Lyon in France, and RWD Molenbeek in Belgium. So yeah, that's kind of my story in soccer, coming from the finance and banking world. Yeah, it's been fun.
Nice. And just to give our audience a background on how we connected was back in June in Miami at Confoot. Had a great opportunity to moderate two panels, and you were on one of them with I think it was the governance of multi-club ownership. Yep, it was that one. It was a great panel and some amazing guest speakers that were on with us. So that's how we connected, and I'm so grateful for you to take the time to come on the podcast afterwards. Um, starting a company is not easy. So why did you start Matex Capital?
Well, I guess that was after my MBA. I did my MBA in the US at Yale School of Management, and my business partner and I met there. We wanted to be entrepreneurs. We were very involved with the Yale soccer club, and it's supposed to be just like a fun thing that you do on weekends, but we took it very seriously. We organized a conference actually at Yale, and that opened a lot of doors for us in soccer. And we started seeing that as a kind of a feasible career opportunity at the time. But in terms of just joining a club or having kind of a corporate, we're clearly not the best soccer players. We couldn't be on the pitch, and we didn't have any kind of experience being in a soccer club. And the corporate opportunities that showed up for us weren't that interesting. So I guess we just kind of decided the best way was to pursue a thesis that we had, which was, is it possible for us to raise funds and buy one of these clubs, given that the issue that we could identify in those clubs was governance. It was kind of bad management, but due to bad governance. And this is something that we thought we could fix at the start, at the acquisition, in the way that we structured a deal. So we just created the company, Matix Capital, and the whole point was to explore that thesis. Like, can we raise capital for an acquisition of a club, exploring that specific thesis of a club with a lot of value, but with bad governance.
Understood. And were you guys successful with it?
Yeah, in the end, it turned out great. But putting that into a timeline, that we graduated and started Matex like officially May 2019, and so in the beginning was just kind of networking and getting connections with clubs and investors, basically. The market for club acquisition in Brazil in particular, and my partner is always also Brazilian, so it was not open at the time. So we had to go to Portugal and Spain to seek for clubs. And I'd say we were successful in the sense that we did attract investor interest. We made great connections, and we found the target. Actually, like I was kind of skeptical of if we were actually going to find a good target, but then the pandemics came. That was 2020, and the deal that we had kind of lined up. we couldn't close it in a big part because of the pandemics. Like there was uncertainty around it. We couldn't kind of logistically organize the sale of the club couldn't organize the sale logistically, and but yeah, it served as a initially I would say like we were not successful in the sense that we didn't do much business for the first 2 years of our company, but it was successful in that it brought us the experience, it brought us the connections. So then when the market turned in our favor, which was when the law changed in Brazil for allowing private ownership of clubs, we were 10 steps ahead of everyone in that market, basically.
Yeah, understood. Um, so we're navigating that side on the private side of One Soccer Nation, and it's through my experience how I've been able to navigate the space is by building a team. We have a few advisors, some from Canada, most from the US, that have had experiences with starting up clubs in the USL 1, USL Championship, that have been a part of MLS clubs, etc. So that's one of the ways I've been learning, aside from my own research and building connections, etc., learning about the different leagues in the US specifically. Um, but how did you guys navigate the space? Because it's not, from my perspective, it's not like an easy trail. You kind of got to figure everything out.
No, yeah, definitely not. And it's funny because it's kind of clubby also, right? it's it's but so first I think the conference that we organized was a good kind of starting point, uh, because it was at that point it was us reaching out to people not with a ask, like we didn't know the people, but we were not reaching out to them with an ask but an offer, right? Like, do you want to be part of this conference in this prestigious university, right? There were people that were paying to be there, and other people didn't pay to be there, but then they were very receptive of our invitation. So that opened a lot of doors. But I think like when we actually created the company, we were very conscious of how hard it would be to actually break into the industry, to break into the bubble, let's say. And what we did was quickly identify what we had that we could offer, and for a long time offer it for free. So if an investor, we could feel that that investor was a serious investor, we were not charging any retainer fees, or we wouldn't like we would we were not kind of playing hard to get. We were just kind of coming up with material, with analysis, with good insights, with things that add value to them, without really asking anything in exchange, and just hoping that okay, things are going to be made right over time. Like as soon as we are recognized as someone that can add value, people will be paying us to do this, instead of us just knocking on the door, say like, do you want to buy this service from me? Do you want to buy this service? I just kind of started putting it out there. And in my
Understood.
case, it was very insightful, very deep analysis of what I would call investment thesis of investment in clubs. Okay. So like you see a lot about, okay, this club is good because of this and that, just like, or they have good performance on the pitch, they have good facilities, or they have X, Y, Z. What I thought was kind of different from our approach was that we were going really like putting ourselves in the position of someone that is a buy side investor, and what exactly is that investment thesis, like brings that up, what will bring that upside, what are the protections from the investment, what's kind of like return, liquidity, risks. So it was kind of what we were putting out there to the market.
Okay, so was there a specific type of investor that you were targeting at that time? Were you guys strictly focused on US investors or international?
No, international. Actually, anyone that we could establish a connection with, and uh, and it was for people with from all over the world. Uh, in particular, like we hit off better with some American investors, I guess, just because of kind of culture and the way the way Americans work. I think it's quite quite simple and a good kind of work culture. And both my partner and I had been immersed in that culture for a little bit, and I think that kind of resonated with investors as well. Kind of a no bullshit, very transactional, very quick way of doing business. And I'm I'm guessing that's kind of a pain point, and I see more or less this when I speak with American investors, is that like they will be they're thinking of an investment in football. They kind of venture out into like Europe and South America or wherever that is, and 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 they'll go into this very long uh, meetings with no clear agenda or no clear resolution, and I think just culturally being able to navigate this and being able to overcome that challenge is something that sometimes is overlooked, right? Like people don't even understand, like when they're on the sell side for the club, they don't understand that the lack of objectivity is something that will be seen, for instance, as for a American billionaire with very little time on their hands, as something that can simply like kill the deal, right? Like if every time they need to go on a call with the club that they are buying, they have to go into like 2 hours, 3 hours of random talk with no objectivity, that may kill a deal. And what we offered, for instance, like a lot of times was just like, okay, you're not going to be on those lengthy calls, but those lengthy calls have to exist because you need to establish a relationship with the club that you're buying, right? It's their baby. They're not going to just let go, right? So maybe my partner and I can be that person that is in the calls that last for 2 hours, 3 hours, that develop the relationship, that go to the city, like the mayor of the town where the club is, and then the investor kind of can save some time, and only show up when it's really critical, when it's really necessary that they're there. And we try to help with the agenda also, so that it's more objective a little bit.
Understood. I've heard about those, and yeah, speed's important sometimes in a deal, and it makes sense on both sides. Like the culture's a bit different in regards to how they transact, um, versus the Americans, very straightforward. Um, where would you say, like, so where did most of the investors you guys connected with back in that time? Was it more so LinkedIn, introductions, in person? Where did most of the connections come from?
From all over the place, but uh, the conference that we did
That
started
was
with connections, and from those connections, we told them what we wanted, what we were doing. Uh, the the people that heard what we were doing started making introductions to us, and that got the ball rolling. But at the same time, yeah, like cold approaches, like cold calling, cold LinkedIn messages. We we met. Um, so the bigger deals that we closed, which was Botafogo and Vasco da Gama, John Texter, we met through just a cold LinkedIn message, uh, and by our luck, he answered. And 777 partners, the way we accessed them was that we formed part, one of those random LinkedIn groups as well, like football investments or whatever. We met a guy there, and that guy established a connection with 777 partners. I don't know how, but by the time he was already kind of like very familiar with our work, and when he knew that 777 wanted to buy a club in Brazil, he recommended our work to them. So you never know where it's going to come from. And so I just cast, in terms of investor connections, what we did was cast a wide net and then try to show good work once we once we were connected.
Understood. And when you say good work, what does that entail?
Just kind of something differentiated. The football industry is full of intermediaries for everything, right? So there's people trying to intermediate to be middleman in places that where there shouldn't be a middleman. And in the end, we were a middleman, right? Like that's what were trying to do. We were trying to advise an investor on buying a club, right? So and when I say show good work, is show the value of what you're doing, right? Like, is it better to have us there? And in that case, it was very clear. Like, so for instance, we would go to a first meeting with an investor. We knew that they were looking into, say, Brazil or Portugal or Spain, which are markets that we really knew, right? Instead of just kind of randomly uh, randomly presenting clubs that they could buy in that market, right? Or just kind of making one introductory email where they speak with the president of the club. We would go into and show a deep dive analysis of all the clubs, what's different about each of them, our own perception of how that fits into their strategy, what's the really like what's the investment behind it. Sometimes we would go to them and just say, look, there's nothing good. There's these three clubs for sale, but none of them will fit your criteria, right? So just very kind of generously showing that value, right? Most of these investors don't have an investment team behind them to look into this specifically. They have their family offices or something like this, but they don't have people who have that knowledge. And so for us, whenever we got a connection that we thought was a good connection, there was someone that was real, we immediately became kind of on their side as if we were part of their team. And we would talk about like fees and remuneration later, right? We knew it was coming because we were showing the value.
Understood. Did you guys do any due diligence to make sure that they were an accredited investor?
You mean who, like John Textor or 777 Partners?
Like not those guys. I mean, like just individual investors that you cross.
Yeah. Yes, but again, like we were not acting in the US as a broker, nothing like that. It was different, just environments, and and you and yeah, and we were not kind of like representing. We were not brokers for the club. We were just how do you say, kind of river guides in the industry, basically.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
yeah, just like I think the more interesting aspect of your question is, yes, we kissed a lot of frogs, let's put it this way, and we kind of learned to identify those frogs, right? And one thing that was very curious for me going into the football industry is kind of just the amount of people who want to be involved and they kind of represent something that they're really not. So of the investors that we would speak with, I don't know, 80% of them, maybe more, didn't really were not working on their balance sheet. They were saying that they were the investors, but they were really like me. I didn't have the the money for the acquisitions. I wasn't the principal of the acquisitions. The only difference is that they were lying and they were pretending representing to have the cash behind it. So, but we started getting a very good sense on this, and just would come out and say it in a very direct way. Look, there's makes no sense for you guys to be raising and for me to be working for your raise. So if you're raising capital, great, great for you. Like, and then you hire me as a buy side advisor after you have raised the capital, right? Wouldn't work for free for someone that's doing the same type of work that I'm doing, right? So, but yeah, it's in term in terms of like, it was a very very peculiar industry, very different from anything that I worked in the past. football, in that there are people who are involved and they're representing to be something that they're really not, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, after kissing, you know, a lot of things are numbers games. So after kissing a lot of frogs, you start to quickly identify. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you'd mentioned, so you know, graduating, like hosting that event, to, you know, starting the journey into the football world of mergers and acquisitions and facilitating those type of deals, to COVID happening. And then after COVID, things kind of slowing down. And then boom, Brazil changes. That floodgates opens up, and you guys were ready to go. What was the first deal that you guys were able to close?
First deal we closed was Botafogo, uh, with John Textor, and that was like 6 months after the law had changed. It was the first big club to make the move, Botafogo, because, and I don't think it's a secret to anyone, the club was in a very dire situation. But uh, we at that point, so just to put in on a timeline, the law I think changed by September, like towards the end of 2021, and we closed the deal, like we changed shares in March 2022. So kind of 6 months there, and our relationship with Textor was already, um, had already been speaking with him since a couple of months before, since he bought his shares on Crystal Palace, since he became kind of known in the football world as an investor. We established that connection then. We were speaking with members of the Brazilian Senate to kind of advise on the law, like be technical advisors on the law in terms of what investors would be looking for. So we were kind of keeping Textor and other investors as well updated on how that was going, and at the same time kind of pitching them on the opportunity that would come out of Brazil. And really, it was and it is a great opportunity in the sense of clubs with millions of supporters, 100 of years of history, great stadiums in a country that, macro scenario is not that good right now, but it's a huge country with more than 200 million people, with a good kind of domestic market. Um, and it's the country of football. But all those big clubs with a lot of intrinsic value were being managed by these members associations. So being managed very politically and very unprofessionally. So the analogy that I used to do at the time was, okay, the Berlin Wall is coming down. Now all these great assets will be available. So the Soviet regime in Brazil is being done, and we're going to privatize these clubs, and there's a lot of value to unlock. And if you look at the results of what we did with Botafogo, in Botafogo I stayed in the management of the club. Uh, I think it helped prove the thesis that there was so much value to unlock.
So very interesting. When you say privatizing the club, how, at a high level, how was that able to be done?
Yeah, so most clubs in Brazil, like most of the big clubs in Brazil, are still members associations. So they're not for profit kind of association. So they don't have shareholders, basically. They have members that vote in the elections and that hold a title. So it's a club, right? It's like Barcelona and Real Madrid are like this to this day, but it's less common in Europe, and definitely not in the US, that you would have a club that is managed that way. And those clubs, they vote to elect the president and their directors every 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It depends on the club. And and historically, there was no kind of like personal liability, personal responsibility on poor management of these clubs. So it's kind of the governance of a nation, of a country, right? So I'm elected, I'm president, I'm going to be here for 3-4 years. I'm going to be judged on the results of the professional men's team during these 3 years. I don't care if I build up debt. I don't care if I don't build infrastructure. I don't care if the youth academy doesn't get better the whole time that I'm here. Don't care anything about long term. Like really, like the incentives are bad. It's like the politicians, right? That govern countries, right? So these club associations, in my opinion, they're very poorly managed, and they build up completely unsustainable amounts of debt. So when we bought, and what changed in the law was that these club associations, the law allowed a mechanism so that these club associations could create a new company, transfer all their football assets into that new company, and make that new company into a private company with shareholders, right? So that new company would be initially owned 100% by the association, but then would be able to sell their shares to raise money to fund their operations, right? So let's take the case of Botafogo. Botafogo had something like $200 million in debt accumulated from its whole history. We looked when we audited that there was labor debt from the 60s in the club's balance sheet. So $200 million in debt, revenues of $20 million, and basically no asset. Okay, no, they don't own the stadium. They didn't have a good training center. Nothing. So that was the situation of the club. Imagine how hard it must be to manage this without any external capital, and they didn't have any mechanisms to raise that external capital because they didn't have shares. So who can they couldn't sell shares. They're not a company, so they couldn't issue like a debenture or something like this. So that was the situation of these clubs. And what we did, for instance, at Botafogo was a promise of an investment of $75 million over 4 years, and the assumption of the debt of the club, and in exchange we would take 90% of the football activities of the club. The club association remained with the Olympic sports, like they do rowing and basketball. They have a social club with a pool, but football, which was 90% of their revenues and costs, would become professional and would be managed through this company, and that would allow an injection of $75 million into that business. And that injection, hopefully, was what was going to put it in a position to be solvent, to be financially feasible, to be honest. So that was the big deal with all the clubs in Brazil. Was something similar happened, and all the clubs that became SAFs, right? All the clubs that became private was a similar structure. And so far, the clubs that made that movement were either like very small clubs, or clubs that were big but in a very dire financial situation that they could not, like that. It was just suffocating, right? So Botafogo, Vasco da Gama, Cruzeiro, all these clubs had so much debt that it was really hurting them on the sports side.
Very interesting. The transition of the structure makes sense. So the question is how long did it take for that law to pass in Brazil, and how much influence did you guys have on it?
Not that much influence, right? We were kind of consulted by people who were around it, but at the time we were not really kind of great insiders into the industry. And it was voted in the Brazilian Senate. And to be honest, like if I were to do it today, I wouldn't do it in that structure. If I had a say, I wouldn't do it in that structure. But it was a kind of a natural evolution of the other kind of broad regulations of Brazilian football. And this one was conducted really well in the sense that the clubs were consulted, like the other work that had been done before was taken advantage of. I don't know exactly how long that process took. It's just one of those things that are multi-years. And Senador Senator Portinho, who actually wrote and kind of and got the law approved. I think he did a very good job in kind of uh, being able to have something that was acceptable and would pass. So yeah, and it was I think the biggest change in Brazilian soccer since the Pelé law.
Yeah. So Danilo, when I was at Confoot, I heard a bit about the Brazilian culture, which I didn't really know at before Confoot, and like I've been to England, I'm aware of the culture there and love the culture there, um, and it's quite different from the MLS. My personal opinion is that the fans in the UK are diehards. They bleed for the club. They're very passionate, and if their club loses, they're like upset for a few days, a few weeks, right? Like their club is the part of their identity per se. And I've heard it's kind of similar in Brazil, but I'm interested to hear it from you because I've never been there. I've never been to a game. But what is the culture like? What are the fans like? I love Brazilian soccer. Some amazing Brazilian talent like Pele, Ronaldinho, Neymar. I've watched so many videos on, but yeah, I would like to hear from you.
Yes, I'd say very, very passionate. If you go to a game, you would see like hundreds of people that have the a tattoo of the club. All these bigger clubs have massive like ultras, which are really people who are fanatic about their club and dedicate a big part of their lives to it. Growing up in Brazil, really like if my team would win, that would make my week. If my team would lose, that I would be made fun of the whole week. So that would really uh, that would really suck. So and it's just like part of the culture completely. Like if you take what Americans have with four big sports or five big sports during the year and then college and what all this, Brazilians and I'd say British people as well, they just focus all of this on football. It's all about football. Everyone plays the same sport. Everyone like kind of watch the same games on the weekend. And if your team loses, it's like you having a personal defeat. It's not just the entertainment. It's like part of our identity.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly I grew up in Canada and I never got to experience that type of culture because we don't have like soccer. We didn't have that for soccer here. And unless you were in you grew up in a family that come from that culture. There's a lot of immigrants here. But if you had that kind of installed in the family, then you would experience that. But for me, I didn't have that experience. Um, and it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. But yeah, I'll leave that there. There's a few more questions. I know I've kind of been on your company for a while, but learning a lot here. And what advice would you give to myself and listeners listening in within our space in regards to maintaining and continuing to build a relationship with investors that are such sophisticated individuals and very smart people? Um, what advice would you give to maintain those relationships and continue building?
Well, I'd say that not to be repetitive, but really find like where you add value to these people, and it might be just being uh just saving them time, right? It might be that you're not uh even if you don't have the best like insight, but you are there saving them time and digesting things to them and bringing them in a way that's respectful and and helpful. So yeah, be helpful, be useful, right? That would be my advice for anyone like trying to connect with investors who are usually people who are very busy and a lot more experienced than me. Like when I studied Matix, I was 30 coming out of my MBA. I didn't like who was I to, for instance, like give business advice to Texter who had made several companies public already, right? So um, I'd guess kind of like being a expert in the subject being and putting in the work before you go out and talk to them. That would be my advice. Really, really nurture those relationships with surprisingly good work in every step of the way.
Absolutely.
Just
Um,
yeah, I can tell even a story about this. So like, as I said, we were working kind of for free for the investors that we connected with, and because we didn't really have the name, or now we don't, but at the time we would sometimes kind of work for free. And for Tech Story, we had done so much work for him already, like in terms of he would have a simple question about like how does this work in Brazil? Like let's uh okay, like well, but how does the prize money work for this and that, or like how does the academy work, like the competitions, blah blah blah. Every time he would say that, we would come back to him like in within the day, or like in 24 hours, with a deck showing this in a very clear way, or like a memorandum in an email showing this in a very clear way. And the turnaround of this was very, very quick, and in a very kind of straightforward business language, uh, to the point that he kind of started feeling bad, and he said, look, I need a deck. Who do you guys hire to make those decks? Like you turn around this in like 24 hours and they're always so beautiful. And I said, no, this is me and Title, right? Me and my partner. That's we do this. And he said, oh man, okay, great. That is you who does it. I'll pay you like X, which was like way more than we would charge, for a PowerPoint presentation that I need, just because I want to pay you back for all the work that you already put in. Right. So first, super nice of him. But second, like, if you are working with people who really want to get into the industry and are serious investors, I think you can be comfortable with the fact that you will be rewarded for hard work in terms of establishing that good relationship with them, and they will want to reward kind of young go-getters, in at some point, right? So we bet a lot on this, and for us it paid off, and I think it's a good strategy, if you're looking to get in.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really good story. Can you, like, high level, give us the trail from starting the company, then to transacting your first deal, or facilitating your first deal? From there, can you give us like the high level trail of what happened next? Did you guys close a few more deals, and then the opportunity of Eagle Football came up? Can you give us that trail?
Yeah. So again, we started the company coming out of the MBA in 2019. And at that point was just kind of trying to network and try just speak with people about our idea, our thesis, and see if we could gather enough kind of investor pre-interest in the that thesis. In February 2020, we went to Portugal. Our goal was to go to Portugal and Spain, visit clubs, the clubs that we had identified on paper that made sense for our thesis. And we did. We kind of toured Portugal and Spain. It was kind of January, February 2020. We identified a good target. Then pandemics hit. We couldn't visit clubs anymore, but we already had our target, and we raised the capital to acquire a second league club in Portugal. At the time, the goal was that we would have investors, but then we would get sweat equity for running the club day to day. That deal didn't close, but it took us a lot of work. For a long time, we were just very focused on this, and so that gets us to like the end of 2020, and 2021 we started like looking into other targets. We started looking into restructuring debt of Brazilian clubs with private credit funds, which was another opportunity that we really liked. And we got to connect better with the Brazilian clubs that we didn't connect with before. But nothing really big came out of it. We did other projects like just to kind of pay the bills, and we were barely paying the bills. We were about to kind of call it quits also because we couldn't keep sustaining ourselves with that. But then kind of a light at the end of the tunnel by 2020. That's when we started getting some better contacts with investors that were looking into Brazil. And we knew that, okay, if the law changes in Brazil, we will be able to make a deal there. And we were already in those conversations with the technical body of the Senate to understand, and we knew exactly how the law was progressing. So yeah, end of 2021, law changes, and we are like kind of full on showing the opportunities in Brazil to investors. Around that time, we met the 777 partners guys as well. We got an actual mandate from them. Early 2022 is when we closed the deal with Botafogo for John Textor. John Textor invited us to be in the management, like have the 2 top leadership positions in Botafogo for me and my partner, which we accepted. But we kind of carved out the fact that we had 777 partners as a client, and we needed to close that deal as well. We had committed to that deal, and that one took a long time. So we only closed it in September 2021. So, but from March 2022, since we started since we bought Botafogo, both my partner and I have been employed by Eagle and helping John Textor and Eagle pursue their plan and develop their business plan. My partner Taro became CEO of Botafogo. He became full-time CEO of Botafogo, working for that club. I, in particular, worked on the other deals that we did. So in the acquisition of Lyon, for instance, I went to Lyon and worked, helped with the transition of management at a certain point. Taro became 100% focused on Botafogo. And once we knew that we were going to be engaged and focused so much on Eagle football and Botafogo, we kind of created a Chinese wall at Matix so that our partners could develop the other businesses that would show up for Matix. And Matix since then did 2 deals with clubs that are very traditional in Brazil, like with very large fan bases, but they were in the lower leagues, like 3rd league and 4th league of Brazil. Yeah, and the market kind of slowed down the last 2 years in Brazil in general. So there were a few deals happening. And yeah, but I would be happy to tell, then from 2020, but just in summary, 2022 on, we were very focused on Eagle football in the whole turnaround of Botafogo, which on itself has been a wild ride, and I would say very successful so far.
Very nice. This is one of, your story is one of the top stories for me in my books because of like how you got in, the works that you guys have done, the stories. And I could relate to a few of those things that you've shared. So yeah, I got to say your story is one of the tops for me. And
yeah, I try not to make it into a sad story. I try not to make it into a sad story, but I think it's a nice story of entrepreneurship. Like 2 years trying to make it happen, and not getting that much traction, to be honest. But seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We can get into that. Like there's so many stories about that phase. Tyro and I we lived together. We ate a lot of instant pasta, to survive and to keep ourselves in the game. And luckily, like we were very lucky also with the timing of how things worked.
Yeah. Well, look, you guys made it now. I mean, those are the sacrifices paid off. And look at
Yeah,
you guys now, man. You guys made it.
yeah, no, like,
Um,
yeah, we're very happy with what we how this turned out for sure.
Amazing. Um, with saying that, for our viewers that don't know what Eagle Football is, what is Eagle Football?
Sure. Eagle Football is a holding company that owns 3 clubs nowadays. We used to own 4. We just sold our participation in Crystal Palace, but we still control 95% of Olympique Lyon in France. We have Botafogo, which, as I explained, we have 90% of it, and we are 99% owners of RWD Molenbeek in Brussels. And yeah, and we manage these clubs very kind of in a very integrated way and very guided and like with day-to-day intervention from our majority shareholder, which is the founder, the person who started the whole thing, which is John Textor. And yes, that's Eagle Football.
Amazing. Um, and it's interesting too because before we connected in Miami, I've come across Eagle Football a few times, looked at the website, and then when I seen who was going to be on the panel, did a bit of research on everyone that was on the panel, and Eagle Football came up again, and I was like, okay, very interesting. And then we connected in Miami, did the panel, learned more, did a bit more research on Eagle Football. And I was like, I got to have Danilo on and learn a bit more from you and continue to research. So, yeah, no, very, very interesting, let alone launching like one club or buying one club is hard enough to do. Um, Takes time, a lot of capital. And, um, but multi-club ownership is next level. Um, like it's a different beast. So like before I dive into that question, I wanted to ask you, like, I'm interested to know what is your day to day look like,
Uh-huh.
if you would like to share,
Yep.
um, and yeah, and then I'll ask that second question.
Okay. So first, like, yeah, my function at Eagle Football, I'm executive vice president of finance and strategy. So my position is very much like in the with the finance department of each club, right? So having the CFOs of each club responding to me in matters that of kind of like reporting and planning and treasury. So like a CFO on top of the CFO of the clubs. And in terms of strategy, has a lot to do with planning, right? So I'm here. I'm in the head office in Florida, so I'm very close to Texter to kind of leadership, like to kind of shape that strategy, and that strategy in the end translates into many things in the day to day, right? So what's going to be the budget for the squad? Can we do a certain deal or not? It gets very granular from this, like knowing that our strategy in the end is to combine all these clubs, roll them up into a very unique kind of football pure play strategy. We want to be listed. We want to go public with that strategy. All of this kind of rolls down to the strategy of each club. Then, in a more granular way, becomes the budget of each club, and then in a more granular way becomes how do we make those decisions day to day in terms of implementing the strategy with the CEOs of each club and the football directors of each club as well to make those decisions that are the most kind of uh, the most consequential ones, right? Like, do we sign this player? Do we sell this player? Do we um, how do we pay for these players? Like, what strategy do we take in each of the commercial initiatives that we're doing? So uh, from this, I'm kind of that link between the strategy and the finances of the holding company and the operating team of each club for the more consequential decisions.
Do you have someone that validates your strategy or that challenges it, or are you the final say?
No, like yeah, I'm not the final say for at all. Like the strategy comes more from the owner and ownership and board level than from me. Okay, like I help inform that that strategy with my analysis and my opinions. But really, it's not. I don't dictate the strategy at all. I'm more an implementing the strategy that's defined by shareholders than dictating that strategy.
So, Danilo, at Botafogo, you led one of the most remarkable turnarounds in Brazilian football, boosting revenues by 220% while cutting liability by a third. What were the toughest decisions you had to make, and what lessons stand out from that experience?
Okay, that's a good question. And yes, there were a lot of very tough decisions to be made there. As I mentioned before, the situation of the club was very difficult financially. Botafogo had just won the promotion to go back to the first tier of Brazilian football, and and to paint the general picture, we had $200 million in debt with $20 million in revenue. Completely unsustainable, uh, and frankly, kind of impossible to do without external capital, which was what we brought as buyers, as investors. We brought in the external capital, and we brought in the better governance structure, right? So we could manage this club in a professional way, as a company that needs a turnaround. And there were many difficult decisions. So uh, let me name a few examples, and then I'll try to tie in with the increasing revenues and the reduction in liabilities. Uh, so like our sponsorship revenue the year before we bought the club was something like $1.5 million, $1.5 million, which was to me was ridiculous considering the size of a club like Botafogo. And tough decision, wasn't my decision. We immediately broke up with all the sponsors. We cleaned our jersey, including the kit provider, which to me also like was a very uh, tough situation because we needed it operationally is very bad to not have to change your kit provider from 1 month to the other, and it was super tough to do it, but we did it. So we thought that it was devaluing our brand, that we had all those sponsors paying so little. We cleaned off the jersey. We changed the kit provider. We had with like a local manufacturer, so no brand on the jersey. So our first jersey as a SAF, as a new company, was completely clean, but it paid off like completely. So uh, in the first year, we already like only with 6 months of sponsorship, we already surpassed the sponsorship revenue from the previous year. And last year we did more than $10 million in sponsorship revenue, so more than 10 times, actually something like 7-8 times more what we had done in 2021. So it completely paid off, but we needed to do that. That was a tough decision, but it needed to be done. On match day, our stadium was there was no segmentation. You could either there was uh, yeah, there was no segmentation in the stadium, and we created a bunch of areas. Like if you bring your kids to the stadium, you have this area. Like we created lounges, we created all this kind of cool stuff and we didn't need any money to do that. Like sponsors would support that, but that was kind of a no-brainer. It wasn't like a tough decision. The tough decision that we did was we completely changed the membership, the logic of the membership. Right, so we noticed that people were paying very little for membership. Our margins on membership were terrible, and we didn't have that many members in the end. It's like the season ticket holders for European clubs, but it's a different model in Brazil. It's just a membership, and we did it in a way that where we were basically giving out tickets for the season that people could just go for free, but they would pay a regular membership to us, and they would get many other benefits. And we kind of, what we wanted to do was change the logic. Instead of like an empty stadium that was kind of depressing and that didn't attract sponsors, that didn't make it exciting, we wanted to fill out the stadium, make it exciting, make it fun, and then make the money on the sponsorships. But even the match day revenues from this, they increased. Let me think like what the numbers would be something like from $3-4 million to $10 million also last season. But again, it took a lot of effort, took a lot of like a decision that wasn't very popular at the time. We had to increase all the prices for the memberships and decrease the price for the games. We kind of upsold them. What else? We changed that was very controversial. That was a tough one. We wanted to explore live events at the stadium, so we changed the pitch to make it turf, to make it like artificial grass, so that we could have those concerts year round. So in Brazil, it's not just summer concerts; it's all year round, and we wanted to be able to host those events year round. And yeah, very controversial decision. Other clubs and even the federation kind of chimed in, but you can't do that in Brazil. Other clubs have it, and we changed the pitch, and that is great. It's kind of what we're doing in revenues is pure margin, so it's like having a second main sponsor in terms of the revenue that it generates, so like $5-6 million. And I think most importantly, and the thing that kind of made it possible for us to do this, was that we created a kick-ass professional team in both in the corporate side and in the football side. People that would drive those changes and make those smart and difficult decisions on day to day. And we completely changed kind of the face and the culture of the club, from a club association to a dynamic place where people want to work, where we kind of do performance reviews. We pay people bonuses, so it feels like working in a dynamic modern culture company. And with this, we can attract some of the best people in the Brazilian football market. And actually, you said 220% increase. That's 2023. 2024, we did $130 million. So that's 6 to 7 times more revenues than just in 2021. And this year, with the Club World Cup, and we started selling players, we're on track to do more than $200 million. So it's going to be more than 10 times the revenues that we had just 3-4 years ago. Yes, it's fantastic. It's better than expected. We're still going to have a lot of obstacles, and we have a lot of obstacles for growth. It's a tough industry to be in, but we really did our homework. And then on the liability side that you mentioned, we had $200 million in debt. We were able to renegotiate that. We used the legal mechanisms that the new law created to do a collective agreement, and that went down by, actually, it's not cut by a third, it was cut by 50%, and we are able to pay it in 15 years. So basically, like I think it's the best example of the SAF law working, which is a club that would struggle really forever financially. It was completely insolvent. Being able to get a capital injection, get new kind of fresh blood, and completely revigorate their activities to become a viable club, right? So nowadays, Botafogo is a competitive club, is one of the biggest clubs in Brazil in terms of revenues. It's back to where it should be, and it wouldn't be possible without investment and without the legal framework behind it, so that we could do it. Hopefully, it stays like this for many years and keeps growing. But just like if you take a picture of what this club was in 2020, 2021. Was kind of like the 2020, I think, was like rock bottom, and versus winning the Brazilian League and the Libertadores in 2024. That's beating PSG this year. That's kind of like a complete transformation that's only can only exist because of the law and the investment. Yeah, I barely mentioned the titles, right? Like we won the Brazilian League and the Libertadores in the same year. Only us, Santos from Pelé, and another club that I won't mention did this feat.
That's history. That's amazing. So, okay, so and if my soccer player transfer knowledge is there, which still needs work. I forgot his name, but Memphis. What's his last name?
Memphis Depay. He's in
He was
Corinthians.
at Lyon, and then now he's at Botafogo.
No, he's in Corinthians in São Paulo.
Oh, see, okay,
Yeah, he's still a beast. He's still so good.
yeah.
And I think it's good for Brazilian football that we are able to bring some of these guys, like it's very high profile stars,
Yeah. You guys have
Yeah.
Neymar there too at Santos.
Neymar at Santos. Coutinho is playing for Vasco. Some really, really great names there. Alex Telles came to play for Botafogo. Some really impressive names. Yeah.
If quick question, if Neymar continues to play, I don't know anything that's going on, but do you think, I remember seeing something about like Neymar either going to Saudi or wait, did he just come from Saudi Arabia?
Yes, he was in Saudi. Yeah.
He was in Saudi.
Yeah.
Do you see Neymar going to the MLS to Inter Miami?
I have no idea. I really, whatever he does, I just hope that he can perform again at that level. He was just magical. Like I always loved Neymar. I just hope that he can get back to that level. And if it's in Brazil or in the MLS where now I live, I would love to see him live. Yeah.
Who's your favorite player? Brazilian favorite
player. I would have to say now I'm a Luis Enrique fan, our star from the title last season. That's my favorite player.
I have to Google him. I don't know that name.
Yeah, he's now he's now really successful in the national team. Last couple of games, he's been amazing. Finally, he's being called up regularly, and he's never been big in Europe. He only played for Betis, but I think it's a matter of time. Soon he'll be like one of the greats.
Interesting. So in regards to Botafogo, on the operations, were you on the ground?
Yes.
In Brazil?
Yes.
So yeah.
In terms of like timeline, when we bought the club, since we made an offer for the club at the end of 2021, I've been already involved in the management, in like transitional management. We bought the club in March 2022. And then me and my partner, we became kind of co-CEOs, but kind of informally, we weren't like announced as CEOs. Just driving this turnaround. Literally, we would have like a white board with all the different issues that the club had. Like we didn't have an accounting system. We didn't have corporate lawyers like to analyze contracts. We didn't have I don't know. It was all the possible issues. We didn't have any kind of budgeting process to do. We didn't have the people. Like we were hiring everyone on the football side. Still, we only had the head scout, which was helping us do this. So we would have this big whiteboard and go tackle each of these problems. So yeah, I was very hands-on, very much on the ground at Botafogo from the beginning. But then at some point, like maybe a year later, so I have a more financial background. My partner Taro has more of an operations background, and we kind of split. Like, so I started helping Eagle with the new acquisitions, with Lyon, with the corporate development stuff, like getting ready for the IPO, all of this, and also just supervising the financials of each club. and Tyro became kind of he was officially announced as the CEO of Botafogo, which he was in practice already for since the beginning, but he was like made official that he was the CEO, and then he focused completely on Botafogo. But yeah, for full year I was focused on day to day, just kind of building the team, hiring people, making those decisions at Botafogo, uh, which is fun but stressful.
What would you say was stressful about it?
Just I think one very unique thing about football compared to any other experience that I had is how public it is. So it's not the biggest company in the world, but it's a company where everything that you do goes to the press, right? So, and people know about it and they criticize you publicly, and you know, the Twitter sphere, like they're not the most, how do you say, most constructively critic people, you know, they just, anything that they don't disagree with you, immediately you're an idiot, right? And then there was a like, very critical point, which was the beginning of our second season, which was 2023. We sold a player to Lyon, our star player from the first season that we were there, which was 2022. We sold that player to Lyon, and fans just went crazy about it. Like they really wanted to kill us, really. So not me. I was already kind of like not in. I was always kind of a more low profile guy, but the texter, he had to change phone numbers because someone found out his number. Tyro was getting kind of this nastiest like threats, just, you know, I'm gonna rip your eyes out. He showed me that DM. Yeah, someone sent him like a direct message saying like, I'm gonna rip your eyes out if I see you on the streets. And he started walking. He has security now in Rio. But anyways, that aspect of it, like until I got used to like the fact that everything that you do is so scrutinized, and not take it personally when people just say like, so for instance, this year everyone's talking so badly about our planning for the season in 2025, and I just recall like what we did in terms of planning, and I'm thinking to myself, I say, okay, I did the best as I could, and this was wrong, this was right, and I learned from it, and then next time I get better. But if you see the fans talking about it, or even the media talking about it, they treat it as the geniuses from last year are complete imbeciles this year, and they made everything wrong, and any person in my place would have done something better, you know. And now I'm much better like accepting that, but in the beginning it was tough, you know, just like mentally, like, did I do something wrong? Am I that big of an idiot? Like, should I not be here, you know? And yeah, it's a very unique thing about football, I'd say.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And that's the unique thing too about it, the how invested the public is, right? They're so captivated. What about for you? How was your experience in Brazil? Did you have to walk around with security as well, or because you kept a low profile, you didn't have to deal too much with the public and fans?
No, I always kept a very low profile. The and to be honest, like, usually I reject any like of these invites. I'm trying, and to be honest, again, like the reason that I went to Confut, like that conference that we met in, and that I accepted this invite to be in this podcast specifically, first is that I liked you, and I like the other podcast that I saw you doing. Um, but second, that I need to improve my profile as someone that shows in the media, so that I can get my visa in the US. Basically, that's it. I already got my visa, but for the green card, I need to show that I'm an authority. So I need to like keep showing up on media, and that's the only reason why I do it. Because otherwise, I would don't do it, because there's no upside in it. Like, what do I gain from being known by the regular public. Maybe a little ego boost every once in a while, but when it sucks, it really sucks. Right? And when your club is losing, I'm from the city of Rio. I grew up there. So you would see me normally on the street with my friends. I would hate it if my private life was invaded the way that, for instance, Tairo's life is. My partner, like I could be in the same position as him. I would hate to have to go around Rio with a bodyguard. Really, it would drive me crazy. So yeah, I tried to keep a low profile for everything, and now I'm trying to show up in media, but only in the US, not in Brazil.
Understood. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time and accepting this invite and doing this. Um, and I know the green card. I went through that process. It took me 3 years to get my green card, and it's a long process. So I know how it is. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and one of the criteria is this: like, if you have to show that you're kind of like that was the criteria in my visa that you are like kind of an authority in a certain field of business. And yeah, the more kind of stuff like this I do, the more I can show that. Yeah.
for sure. Well, happy to play a small part in that for you. So coming towards the end, my last question is, what would you say? What's your favorite part about the work that you're currently doing right now?
I'd say that the impact really. I mentioned before as a negative, more or less negative thing, that what you do goes in the media, but the fact that your decisions also like have such a big impact, like so many people care and love care about the club, care about the sport, and just love being there. That to me is the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life, and that's the best part of the job for me. Like, just really going to a stadium that I've gone to since I was a kid. And sometimes I went to that stadium to the Botafogo stadium, and it was empty, and the level of play wasn't that good. Maybe the pitch was was how do you say it, patchy, like it was not that nice. And then going there and knowing that, like, as a result of the work that I did, that my colleagues did, we are putting on a show. Like, it's 40,000 people. The level of play is great. The pitch is amazing. LED lights are booming. The sound is great. There's a big screen on the back of each side. All the things that I can influence, right? Obviously, I'm not a player, but I put I helped put the party there to people. And just knowing that, like, in the city of Rio, there's going to be some traffic today because that club is playing. Everyone's going to that thing. Is going to be a huge party, you know? I don't think you get that with other jobs, no matter how successful you are, you don't touch that many hearts, let's say. And I just see it as a huge impact of the job. And that's my favorite part about it, winning or losing. The fact that, like, instead of being like 5,000 people in a depressing stadium on a Wednesday night, it's 40,000 people, fireworks, great level of play, and the city and the fans are really moved by it. So that's my favorite part for sure.
Amazing. Well, Danilo, thank you so much again for taking the time, sharing the stories. Um, and there's honestly, like, there's a lot for me to learn from you. Um, so I look forward to continuing to build our relationship. I look forward to seeing you at other events. Hopefully you'll be at Soccer X Miami this
I
year.
will be. Yeah, I
Oh,
will speak actually.
yeah.
Yeah, now I speak at this.
Okay.
I'm accepting these invites.
Nice. So I'll most likely see you there, and I think I'll be moderating one or two panels again. So looking forward to that. But I just want to thank you for taking the time for being on the One Soccer Nation podcast.
Uh, Again, Kareem, thanks for the invite. It's great pleasure to be here. Looking forward to seeing you at Soccer X, and yeah, and keeping the connection.